November, and we're looking at Emmy's presentation.
Silence on the floor.
On Unit 10.
Recording there in 3.
Okay, hi guys. This is my project on Unit 10. I was focusing on tea packaging. So yeah, I wanted to produce a final multi-pack tea packaging, and I've all given you a copy of my brief, so you can sort of see what I was planning to do. This was my brainstorm at the beginning, where I started brainstorming all the sort of areas that I could focus on within illustration, and I decided to do tea packaging because it's not something I've focused on before and involves other areas in graphics other than just compiling images. So the company that I'm doing it for are an imaginary startup company that focus on selling organic and fair trade tea. So they want to sort of market their tea in places like John Lewis and M&S and independent shops, so they're a bit more high end. So the target audience will be a bit more money to spend. I also said they're more likely to be females, women tend to buy more tea than men on average, and they're more likely to be in their 20s to 40s. And they're probably not going to have as much time to do shopping, so the packaging has got to be really eye-catching and stand out to them. I also decided on all the specifics of the shape of the tea bags and the sizing and everything, just so I know exactly what I had to work with. And I said that it would be good to have some handcrafted elements, because this is something that I found from research is something that exists a lot in more high-end packaging as well, so that could be in text and the imagery as well. This was a sort of sample of one of my ideal customers. And this was some initial research I did on different tea packaging. So I was looking at sort of more modern ones and more traditional ones, the ones that sell well. So the top one is multi-tea packaging, so I could start thinking about that as well. There's some other ones. I found that Clipper Tea, the one at the bottom, is a really successful one. They've got a lot of handcrafted elements in there as well. Here I started thinking about the name for the tea company. I decided on Leaping Hare in the end. I started doing loads of ideas that had involved puns with the name tea, but they already existed, so I had to come up with something a bit more original. And Leaping Hare worked quite well because I think it gives an image of something that's quite fair trade, because the image of a leaping hare, sort of, you can imagine something running around in the wild, and also gives a sort of organic feel as well. So here I started looking at sketching ideas for the logo and compiling research to help me, so obviously images of hares as well. I looked at some other successful logos and why they worked well, so they weren't all to do with tea obviously, but I just looked at different elements, the Unilever one that uses the type at the bottom, but then also has lots of images within the U, which I thought was really clever. And here I started experimenting on Illustrator with vector images, and I liked this logo, but when I showed it to the audience, they couldn't read it very clearly, so I decided to go with the other one, which here it's not finished yet, but I was experimenting with what the rough idea of it would be. I started looking at the history of tea packaging as well, so we've got images from the early sort of 20th century when packaging really started to come in, especially in the food industry. There are lots of nice colours, and there's a lot more handcrafted elements there actually as well, so it's good to look back at. Here I'm not going to read through all of it because it's a lot of information, but I started doing research into the history of packaging and why it's really important, and the sort of manufacturing process that would have to be carried out to produce like standard packaging. So one of the first images is images of Tetra Paks, and Tetra Paks were like one of the sort of first like major advances in food packaging because it's hygienic and it's cheap. And I chose the image of Tesco because I was talking before, packaging wasn't really that important because there weren't major brands or anything, and people would just buy all their food how it was, and just there weren't any brands to promote. But I think Tesco was one of the first supermarkets in the UK to really sort of take off in like the 1930s to actually have a brand. And one of their first like packaging that they used was for tea, for their own tea, which I thought was quite funny. And that machine there is a picture of a CAD machine, which is often used a lot in the manufacturing process. We use CAD and CAM, but we don't have the technology here, but that's what would be used. And I was also looking at packaging like disasters as well.
Right.
I also looked at the logos that I'd need to use on my packaging. So here, the green one is the EU organic mark. So I knew I had to use the Soil Association one, which is a sort of organisation which checks whether your product is organic. And I think 95% of your ingredients have to be organic and they have to be GM free. There's quite a lot of sort of standards that you have to meet, but you also need the EU one to sort of show that you can make the basic ones as well. Barcodes, obviously you need that on all packaging because it's what, like, it's basically every single packaging has a slightly different barcode, so that it recognises the product, so nothing can be stolen. They can track like what's been sold. This recycling mark is like, it's one of the most common ones which I found from research, was often used on packaging, and I want my packaging to be recyclable, and it just means that it's recycled in most areas. That's the Fair Trade mark, the one with the, you recognise it. And the Fair Trade is like a charity which sort of strives to improve the like conditions for workers around the world. So like by having the Fair Trade mark, it sort of tells the audience that your product is like doing its best to make sure the producers are getting the best possible deal they can. And FSC mark is to show that it's the like paper that you're using in the product has been responsibly sourced, so it's from like a forest which is being looked after well, so it's not, you're doing your best for the environment basically when you buy something with that mark. These were more packaging inspirations, so I started looking at layout and colour and like construction of boxes as well. And this was some primary research, so I did some in the supermarket. This is where I found that fruit teas were like a really popular flavour, so I decided to do fruit teas in mine. And these were more like high-end ones in John Lewis. Not all of them are tea packaging, but like the ones at the bottom have really nice handcrafted images in them. This was some packaging that I bought, and I like analysed different bits of it, so stuff like the type on it, the typography, and the pattern, and like how they laid out all the text as well, and all the things that you need on it. I started at the top you can see, I started writing down all the information that I'd need to use on my packaging. It's although I'm having to promote what I, like with the images I want to promote what I'm selling, there's obviously like important information that all food packaging has to have in it. And here I started like doing sketches of developing ideas, and I also started doing nets because it's really important to sort of know exactly how it's going to be constructed. Here I sort of decided on what would be my final net. I tried to aim to use the one which would use the least paper and also like use the smaller amount of glue tabs, so it was better for the environment. I started doing models and I found things that didn't work, so like the lids wouldn't close properly or they all wouldn't fit in out of packaging, so I had to like redo the nets to make sure it worked. So when I finally decided the shape of it, I started looking at imagery, so I started doing some like initial sketches of the fruit that I was going to use, and I started looking at different artists who work with food packaging. So this artist did some food packaging for M&S, She mostly uses like liner cuts and quite like bold images. This one she does lots of work. She's done some for, I think, for some supermarkets, and she's also done some for some other food products. This one I really liked her work. She uses quite a sort of loose, watery style, and I thought it worked really well when she did the packaging. The way she like overlaid it, it was quite nice. All the images were really simple. They worked really well together as a pattern. And this one was my favourite. She uses watercolour and inks and fine liners, and she also uses Photoshop quite a lot of the time to like enhance the colours. And so I decided to work more on her style. So these are my final images that I decided to use. So I made sure that I had like a certain amount of images for each packaging. Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
No. And I did research into typography, just to sort of think about. I wanted to do some handcrafted typography on my packaging. So I've got a model here that you can pass around. So like I've got the sort of slogan on the top, and I've also got you can open it up if you want. If you push them through from the other side, you can. Yeah. You can see like the name is written in handcrafted typography. So I was looking at what like different brands, how they sort of emulate the feel of their products through the sort of font that they use. So like this one, it's sort of quite playful and sort of childish in a way, which sort of makes it feel quite friendly. And yeah. This one I thought was quite feminine with like the extra swirls on the end as well. So this was my experimentation with typography. I also decided to like redo the type in the logo because I thought it was a bit simple from my original one, so I wanted something which was a bit stronger that you'd be able to see like on a really small scale. So that was my final logo design. And here I started doing my final net, so I started putting all the pattern on first. And then I started putting on all the type. I only did the hand type for all the hand font for the title, but then I used just like a really standard, simple font that was easy to read for all the information. And I started doing it in white, but then I like did test on my audience, so most of them preferred the black background, so I did that, and I think that makes the fruit stand out more. So these are my final nets. There, I've also got like 8 different copies. I don't know if you want to see them. And I made the model first just to make sure like everything worked. So like I made some mistakes and like fruit didn't like match up properly on either side, so I wanted like everything to look good. And yeah, that's my final model. If you want to pass that around. Also, it would be made out of paperboard, so it would be a bit sturdier. Are there any questions?
Is it finished?
Are there any questions?
Well,
Have you got any questions? No?
Well done.
finished.
Have you got any questions on the package or anything?
Was it hard?
What's the cost?
The cost, it's quite hard to figure out because there's so many different like costs of like the printing, and that's for here it's quite low. But also the paperboard costs are really hard to figure out. I did do research on the cost of paperboard and like importing them, but it's really hard to sort of know when you're doing it with fair trade as well, where it's coming from. Like lots of the ones that I looked at, they were really cheap, but it seemed a bit dodgy, like where they're coming from. So I need to do further research on that.
Have you got any questions?
Why is it like more like for posh people?
That was just for my brief. That's just what I decided because it's quite a big market now. So I thought that'd be something to work.
question?
Do you
Have you got
any?
anything to say about the project?
That was amazing. Man.
I
I was happy.
Well done, Ellie.
Well done. Man.
That's a nice package. The package is beautiful, and we can see that you've worked
I
hard on
like it,
this
I like
project.
I like it. I
I
like
like
it.
it a lot.
Well,
It's all
executed
mine.
beautifully. That's all I
Bro,
can say.
I just bro.
Thank you very much.
I've